The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson contains only one character, an extremely useful one. The earliest oracle bone pictogram shows a person dancing, possibly a shaman or sorcerer. In his hands, he appears to be holding two animal tails, which I've colored red. Later embellishments include ornamental rings attached to those tails. I've colored them blue. Down through centuries of writing and copying, the tails were mistaken for two trees, colored green on the slide. At one time, an extra element was inserted between the trees to indicate the meaning, but that element was eventually lost, leaving the modern character. Pronounced second tone, wu, wu. It retains a fragmented dancer, vertical stripes for the rings, and 4 dots for the trees. Another character which appears at the end of the sequence is considered by etymologists to be another version of this dancer in a bent knee pose, which was often used interchangeably with this more complex one. It's now the simplified character. Again, both versions are pronounced second tone wu and have a negative meaning, translated in English as no, not, none, or without, or lacking. For this reason, I've dedicated this entire lesson to it, arranged alphabetically with shorter noun phrases first, and then introducing verbal expressions and longer idioms. You'll recall from Lesson 56 that fa is a simple depiction of the life of a nomadic herder, leading his flock along a river to greener pastures, in accord with the 4 seasons. Moving one's animals with the seasons meant acting in accordance with the laws of nature. These laws of nature were then extended to the laws of society, and finally to the proper way of doing anything. So, our first phrase is 无法, meaning there's no way to do it. It cannot be done. 我跟他思想好像无法沟通. There seems to be no way for me to communicate with her. 我父母向来无法理解我的心理. My parents have never been able to understand me. 爸爸因为腰动过手术，无法久坐. Dad had an operation on his back, and for that reason cannot sit long. 我无法想象他会公然说出这个话. I could not have imagined he would openly say this. 他无法否认事情是因为他多嘴搞僵的. There's no way he can deny his big mouth caused the deadlock. 我无法相信我正听到的话. 你说这玩儿吗? I cannot believe what I just heard. Are you joking? 无法无天 is an idiom meaning to behave lawlessly, literally, to defy laws, both human and divine. 你不约束儿女，弄得他们无法无天. You don't restrict your children to the point where they run wild. 王子无法无天的行为，早就成众矢之的. The prince's unrestrained behavior has long been the object of much criticism. 无法无天的汽车追逐电影，我才不想看。I have no desire to watch chaotic car chase movies. The next set of expressions combines 关系, meaning a linking or relationship, with 无, and then dropping the character 系. She may be added, but is not necessary in this expression. 无关 therefore means irrelevant, things having nothing to do with each other. 你是去是留，跟我无关。Whether you go or stay has nothing to do with me. 你何必过问跟你无关的事呢？ Why take an interest in things that don't concern you? 你讲的这些因素跟此问题明明无关。The factors you mention are clearly unrelated to this problem. 理 with the jade radical from lesson 74 refers to the various layers in the marbling of a block of jade that must be taken into account during carving for an aesthetically pleasing result. From this evolved the various extended senses of step-by-step reasoning, logic, and arrangement. 无理 would then mean unreasonable, illogical. 我们否认此无理的指责. We deny this unwarranted accusation. The character for physical strength, 力, is represented by a primitive three-pronged plow used to till the soil. So, 无力 means powerless or weak. 我把刀子从他无力的手指中取出来. I removed the knife from her weak grasp. Our next phrase takes 明 from lesson 15, which combines 系, meaning sunset, with 口, a mouth, to form the character for name. Because at nightfall, it's necessary to self-identify by calling out one's name. 名气 refers to one's reputation or fame, literally the vital force of one's name. 无名 means nameless, and 无名气 means someone who is unknown or a nobody. 公主怎么可能嫁像她这样无名气的人? How could a princess marry a nobody like him? We've already learned the names of some of the fingers of the hand. 食指, the index finger. 中指, the middle finger. And 小指, the little finger. The Western custom of wearing rings on the fourth finger didn't exist in China, so the ring finger in Chinese is the finger with no name. 无名指. 公车门夹到了儿子的无名指. The bus door shut on my son's ring finger. Anger is often described as a burning, seething sensation. So, a nameless fire. 无名火 or 无名怒火 is a feeling of fury, wrath, or anger deep inside. 在听他的讲解时，我心里一把无名怒火. As I listened to his explanation, feelings of rage welled up inside. 能 from lesson 18 is the primitive drawing of a bear with sharp teeth and claws, which came to be used not for the animal, which is now 熊 with the fire radical underneath, but metaphorically to indicate power, strength, competence, or energy. 无能 then is another phrase for powerlessness or impotence, as in these next two examples. 性无能 sexual impotence. 无能的君王, a powerless monarch. A longer phrase containing 无能 is 无能为力, meaning powerless, helpless, or incapable of action. 看样子我们无能为力. It seems there's nothing we can do about it. 你得另请高明，这件事我是无能为力的。You'll have to ask someone more qualified. I can't handle it. Second tone, 请 from lesson 52 combines the upright heart radical with the qing phonetic to refer to feelings, emotions, love, and affection. 无情 naturally would mean the absence of feelings, or callous, heartless, or cruel. 野心是无情的. Ambition is ruthless. 男友的那些无情的话使得她心死. Her boyfriend's callous remarks left her cold to him. 世界就是这么无情的，你不知道吗? This is a ruthless world. Don't you know that? 限 from lesson 46 means limit, boundary, or restriction. So, 无限 means limitless, boundless, or infinite. 他好像有无限的时间跟死党相聚闲聊. He seems to have an endless amount of time to hang out with his buddies. 心里的无限仇恨无法在短时间内化解. Such deep-seated hatred cannot be dispelled overnight. 无心 shouldn't require much explanation. Without heart could mean either something unintentional or a person not being in the mood to do something. 他此时此刻无心闲聊. At this particular moment, she was in no mood to chat. 我心乱如麻，无心把书念完. I was so confused and had no desire to finish the book. 他累得不得了，也无心过问此事. He was very tired and in no mood to attend to the matter. With the addition of a mouth, 口, we have the idiom 有口无心, literally, to have the mouth but not the heart. In other words, to be sharp-tongued but not malicious. Here's one example. 他昨天贸然讲的话是有口无心. He didn't mean those thoughtless remarks he made yesterday. Here is an 8-character idiom referring to someone mentioning something that inadvertently hurts another person's feelings or otherwise upsets them. 言者无心，听者有意. The listener perceives unintended meaning in what was said. The opposite of 有意 is 无意 or 无意中, also referring to an unintentional error. 他无意中说溜了嘴，他另有高就. She inadvertently let slip that she had a better job lined up. 他无意中讲的话使他失去一个好朋友. An unwitting remark caused him to lose a good friend. 用 from lesson 55 is a pictogram of bamboo sections and considered the forerunner of the wooden bucket, which was an essential item in everyday use. From this comes its basic meaning of to use. 无用, therefore, would mean useless or of no use to anyone. 你请的工人一个比一个无用. Each of the workers you hired is more useless than the last. 此河流以北都是无用的不毛之地. North of this river is useless wasteland. 他不讲理，你一切的努力是无用的. He's unreasonable. All your efforts are to no avail. In lesson 68, we had the character be showing two women standing close together, giving it the meaning of close proximity, one next to the other. Be, meaning next to, is extremely useful in making comparisons, since two things far apart are difficult to compare. They must be placed side by side. 无比 would of course mean there's no way to compare something. It's incomparable, unsurpassed, unrivaled. 在工厂里工作一天，使他无比的累。One day working in the factory is extremely tiring for her. 听了这些话以后，我心里无比的灰心。On hearing his words, I was enormously disappointed. 他个子高，力大无比，班上的男生都怕他。Her big build and incomparable strength made the boys in the class fear her. In lesson 30, we learned second tone 从, showing one person closely following another. By adding today's character 无从, it means there's no one to follow. There's no leader, so there's obviously no way we can proceed. This expression is used before verbs. 那里耳目众多，我们无从下手。There will be too many people around. We won't be able to pull it off. 这个问题好麻烦，无从着手。This problem is really complicated. Where does one start? 有些人的贪心是无从想象的。It's hard to imagine that some people can be so greedy. 有人在背后责骂你，你也无从知道。You have no way of knowing if people are criticizing you behind your back. 怎样的黑手在指使他们，我们无从得知。We'll never find out what kind of evil person is manipulating them from behind the scenes. Second tone 了 from lesson 76 is a pictogram indicating an ear condition, a ringing or buzzing noise in the ears, and poor hearing. If you have a partially deaf family member or know someone with poor hearing, you will have noticed them leaning towards you to catch what you're saying. So, 了 also means to lean forward to hear, which means either you're hard of hearing or you're interested in what is being said. The next phrase, 无聊, is based on this connotation of showing interest by bending toward the speaker. 无 means lacking or without, so the combination 无聊 means boring, silly, or stupid. Something you have no interest in whatsoever. 你真的想去看此无聊的电影吗? Do you really want to go see this silly movie? 他看的都是那些无聊的理论著作。She only reads those boring theoretical works. 大家不要花时间在这么无聊的事情上。Nobody wants to spend time on stupid things like this. 那个话题太无聊了，我不大好意思讲。It was a boring topic, but I was too embarrassed to say anything. 闲得无聊 would refer to a person bored, with nothing to do to occupy their time, as in these next two sentences. 他们闲得无聊， 坐在那里滑手机。Bored, they sat idly swiping away on their phones. 要是闲得无聊，我就出去溜大街。If I'm bored with nothing to do, I just go window shopping. 论 from lesson 44 is composed of the speech radical beside a bundle of bamboo strips collected and arranged in correct order. As a verb, 论 means to discuss, debate, or comment on. 无论, therefore, is a very useful phrase translating as without regard for what is said, no matter what, no matter who, no matter how, etc. 无论他说什么，你都别相信。No matter what he says, don't believe him. 无论你走到哪里，我都跟着你。Wherever you go, I will follow you. 技术人员无论什么时候都能找到工作。Skilled workers can find a job at any time. 无论花多少时间，也得完成计划。No matter how long it takes, the project must be finished. 下班后，无论他怎么累，也得再打理家事。Regardless of how tired she is after work, she still has to do the housework. By inserting 如何 and saying 无论如何, all situations are covered, no matter who, what, when, where, why, or how. In better English, we would say, in any case, at any rate, whatever happens, etc. 我无论如何也不卖我的山水名画。In any case, I'm not selling my famous landscape paintings. 他想，无论如何都必须跟他划清界限。She feels that whatever happens, she must distance herself from him. 我的马无论如何就是不肯再往下走。My horse wasn't going one step further, and that was that. 须 from lesson 40 is a drawing of hair on a man's face, his beard. It refers to a young man finally permitted to grow a beard at the age of 20, when he became an adult with all the duties and responsibilities that entailed, such as marrying and starting a family. Duties and responsibilities are things that must or have to be done. 无须, then, would logically mean there's no need to do this. 上层人员已认可，计划书无需再过目。Upper management has already approved the plans. It's not necessary to review them again. An arrow next to a mouth is the character 之, meaning to speak like an arrow, directly and without hesitation, because one knows the facts. Combined with 无知, it means speaking without knowing. In other words, out of ignorance. If referring to a child, it could also mean innocent, since a child cannot be held accountable. 此无知的想法比比皆是. This ignorant opinion is widespread. 别人的指责，他认为是无知的关系。Other people's criticism, he feels, is due to their being uninformed. 有些人永不能从无知中解脱出来。Some people can never free themselves from their ignorance. As we saw in previous lesson, number 78, 长 originally referred to a loincloth or skirt covering the lower body. And since no one, male or female, goes bottomless, this loincloth character was borrowed to mean common, constant, frequently, or often. The phrase 无常 would then mean unpredictable or random. 晴雨无常就是4月份的天气。April weather is an unpredictable mix of rain and sunshine. 山上森林里的黑熊出没无常。Black bears randomly appear in the mountain forests. We've seen that Chinese uses double negatives to mean a positive, such as 不是没有道理, meaning not unreasonable. Well, now we have 无不, literally none do not, meaning all without exception in English. 世界上一切的事无不是天意。Everything in this world happens without exception according to the will of heaven. 开车个人可以，坐火车也无不可。Of course, driving there is fine, but going by train is not a bad idea either. 他的问题当中无不包含指责的成分。Every one of his questions contain a hint of criticism. And here's a triple negative combination. 无时无刻 plus 不, literally, no time, no moment that I do not, which then becomes all the time I do, or in more natural English, incessantly or constantly. 我们无时无刻不在找有才无名的作家。We are constantly on the lookout for talented but unknown writers. 我们无时无刻不在想念你们。You are always in our thoughts. In lesson 38, we learned the character pronounced cha, cha, or chai, depicting stalks of grain being rubbed between the hands. During this process to release the millet grains, the two hands are not aligned together. This misalignment is the source of the character's extended meanings of uneven, no good, poor, or disappointing. The first expression we learned then was 差不多, which translates as just about enough, nearly the same. Today we have the four-character phrase 相差无几, meaning there's hardly any difference at all. 这两家餐厅的羊肉火锅相差无几. There's hardly any difference between the lamb hot pot in these two restaurants. 你这生财之道几乎跟诈术相差无几. Your money-making scheme is little different from fraud. 三只手机相差无几，买哪一只都可以。The three cell phones are nearly identical. Any one of them will do. Lesson 23 introduced 骑, the pictogram of a one-legged person with a cane or crutch for support, which, when given its second pronunciation of first tone, 鸡, came to mean one-legged numbers, or odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. And just as odd or singular in English means strange, unusual, or rare also, so does this character when pronounced second tone, 齐. Today's new idiom is 无奇不有, a rare example of negative 不 being used with the verb 有. It means there's nothing too strange in this world, this group, or this organization. 这个世界之大，无奇不有. There's nothing too strange in this great big world. 你这班朋友真是五花八门，无奇不有. Your friends are a varied and peculiar bunch. 大财主的生活世界里真是无奇不有. We should be surprised at nothing in the world of the super rich. Next, we have the idiom 无中生有, literally, to create something out of nothing. In other words, to fabricate, or something entirely fictitious. 别把这无中生有的事信以为真. Don't fall for this purely fictitious story. 无中生有的创世论，你信吗? Is the something from nothing origin story believable? This is an obvious reference to the Big Bang theory of the origin of the universe, which religious groups say contradicts the biblical origin and is therefore unacceptable to them. 他说的全是无中生有，怎能听信呢? What he said is sheer fabrication. How can you believe it? We saw in Lesson 31 that fourth tone yo shows a man with outstretched arms kneeling before an altar, making offerings and beseeching the gods for favor and protection. Over time, nearly all the details disappeared, leaving just one outstretched hand and a mouth to indicate the act of prayer. The result was modern yo, meaning simply the right hand, or direction to the right. And since early Chinese writing was on strips of bamboo, from top to bottom, right to left, what was written before was both above one's current position in the text and to the right of it. For this reason, yo can also mean above, as in our next expression, 无出其右. Literally, none has ever appeared above this. Or in other words, this person or thing is second to none, unequaled or unrivaled. 这本小说是无出其右的最上作品. This novel is an unrivaled literary work. 这名画家可称为有史以来无出其右者. This painter is claimed to be second to none in all of history. And finally, a 7-character idiom, 有过之而无不及, literally translated, exceeding this and matching it in every way. In simpler English, that means to outdo, or go even farther than someone or something else. It's usually a criticism. 今天的阴霾跟昨天相比，有过之而无不及. Today's smog reading is as bad as yesterday's, if not worse. 他的技术跟你相比，可能有过之而无不及. His skills are at least as good, if not better than yours. Here is our color chart with today's only character. 无. Here's a recap from today's lesson. 1. The second tone character, wu, started out as the depiction of a person dancing, most likely a shaman or witch doctor. He appears to be brandishing 2 animal tails to add to the effect. Ornamental rings were later added to the tails, but the basic idea remained. This was a ceremonial dance. Over the centuries, the set of rings became a set of vertical strokes, and the tails were misinterpreted as trees, giving rise to another ancient form of the character showing 2 trees at the bottom. Finally, those trees were reduced to 4 dots. This is the modern version. Another character of a gyrating dancer with all his accoutrements removed apparently existed around the same time, and was eventually used interchangeably with it up to the present day. China has adopted this bare-bones version as the simplified character, but retains most of the original elements in the character for dancing, which will appear in a future lesson. Now you will find a short quiz on double triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.